Ethan arrived in the small town just before sunset, his old car packed with memories he didn't want anymore. The city had broken him, a bad breakup, a canceled dance show, and the feeling that everything he'd built had slipped through his fingers. So when he found the ad for a cheap room above a bakery in a quiet town no one had ever heard of, he took it without thinking. His first days there were silent. He spent them wandering narrow streets lined with brick buildings and faded signs. The townspeople were kind but distant, polite in that way people are when they know you won't stay long. He told them he was a choreographer, but no one seemed to care much about dance in a place like this. Till he needed to move. His body craved it. And when he stumbled across the old theater at the edge of town, it felt like fate. The sign was rusted and the front doors were locked, but he found a side entrance that hadn't been sealed properly. On the fifth night in town, he slipped inside with nothing but his phone flashlight and a pair of worn dance shoes. Place was huge. Dust floated in the air like ghosts and broken chairs lined the aisles. The red curtain on stage was torn, and one of the overhead lights flickered even though the power should have been off. But to Ethan it was perfect. He stepped onto the stage and let his body remember. Every stretch, every twist, every beat. Alone under the faint light, he moved like he hadn't in months. Then he heard it. A soft sound, not from the floor beneath him but somewhere farther back in the dark. Music. Ethan turned, his breath caught in his throat. The far end of the stage, a woman was dancing. Her hair was long and dark, her dress simple but elegant like something from another time. She moved with an effortless grace that Ethan had only ever seen in dreams. Every motion was poetry. Her arms, her legs, the way her body told a story without words. He couldn't look away. But then he noticed something impossible. Her shadow wasn't dancing with her. Stood still like a black painting pinned to the stage floor, even as she spun, jumped, and twirled. Ethan blinked, thinking it was a trick of the light. He stepped closer. The woman paused, sensing him maybe. She turned slowly to face him. Her eyes locked onto his, wide, curious calm. And then she vanished. Not ran. Not walked away. Vanished. Like mist. The stage was empty. The music stopped. Finn stood frozen, his heart pounding like a drum. He searched the wings, the seats, even the backstage. Nothing. No one. Just silence and dust. That night, he didn't sleep. He kept replaying it in his head, her movements, the music, that shadow. He wasn't crazy. He knew what he'd seen. And more than anything, he knew what he'd felt, awe. She was the most beautiful dancer he had ever witnessed, and she had disappeared before he could ask her name. The next night, he returned. And the night after that. Every time he brought music. A small speaker. Sometimes he danced, hoping she'd come back. Other times, he just sat in the front row and waited. But the stage remained empty. He began to ask around town. Carefully at first. Hey, do you know who owns the old theater? Was it ever open recently? The answers were always the same. Been closed for years. No one goes there. Too many accidents. One elderly woman at the flower shop looked up when he asked. Theater, she said softly. You didn't see anything in there, did you? Finn tried to smile. Like what? She didn't smile back. If you see her again, don't talk to her. That night, he went back anyway. Midnight came and went. Till no sign of her. Then, just as he was packing up, the air changed. Grew colder. The overhead light flickered. And there she was, standing at center stage, barefoot, looking straight at him. Finn's breath caught. He didn't move. Neither did she. Then, slowly, she raised one hand. Her fingers moved in a gesture, a small wave maybe, and she turned away and began to dance. He stepped forward, his voice barely a whisper. Who are you? But she didn't answer. Just kept dancing, more beautifully than anything he'd ever seen. This time, he watched closely. Her body moved with the music, bending and rising, her expression full of pain and joy. But the shadow, it stayed locked in place behind her. Still dark, unnatural. He felt chills crawl down his spine. For several minutes, the music faded. She paused, looked at him one more time, and vanished again. Then dropped to his knees. He didn't know if she was a ghost or something else entirely. But he knew one thing for sure. He had to see her again. She was his muse, his mystery, his new obsession. And her dance, her impossible, haunting dance, had already changed everything. Ethan returned to the theater every night. He brought music, candles, and sometimes a single rose, placing it on the edge of the stage like an offering. First, she didn't come. He danced alone, watching the shadows for signs. Days passed. Weeks. And then one night, when he had nearly given up, she was there again. Lila. She didn't speak at first. She danced. Soft music played from his speaker, and she moved like the melody had been written for her bones. Each step, each turn carried emotion he couldn't name. It was as if she were telling a story, one filled with longing and pain. Ethan sat on the edge of the stage and watched in complete silence. He knew this wasn't just performance. It was memory. When the song ended, she stopped moving and looked at him. Her eyes shimmered in the low light. Her chest rose and fell gently, though she showed no sign of being tired. He finally asked, "What's your name?" For a moment, she just stood there. Then, in a soft, clear voice, she answered, "Lila." The sound of her voice gave him chills. He smiled, almost shyly. "I'm Ethan." Lila nodded, her expression unreadable. Every night after that, she came. Sometimes she danced. Sometimes they just sat in silence. Sometimes she spoke, but only a few words. He tried not to push her, even though he wanted to know everything. She was like a riddle wrapped in silk and music, beautiful, fragile, and impossible to solve. He asked, "Where are you from?" She looked at the old velvet curtain and said, "Here." "Do you live in town?" She tilted her head. "Not like you do. Why do you dance alone?" Lila's eyes darkened. "Because I have no one left to dance with." She always answered like that, just enough to make him feel closer, never enough to understand. But her presence was addictive. Ethan stopped checking his phone, stopped replying to emails from agents or old friends. He didn't tell anyone what he was doing. The world outside faded. All that mattered was the theater and her. He began to choreograph again. First, it was just notes in a notebook. Then sketches. Then full routines. But they weren't like the ones he used to make. These dances were raw. Deep. They had emotion he didn't even know he carried. Grief, hope, desire. Lila's movements were shaping something new in him. He started to mimic her steps when she danced. She noticed. Sometimes she would slow down or repeat a motion like she was teaching him. Though she never admitted it, Ethan could tell she wanted him to learn. They weren't just dancing, they were sharing something unspoken. One night, after a particularly powerful performance, Ethan turned off the speaker and sat beside her on stage. "Have you ever danced for an audience?" he asked. Lila looked toward the empty rows of chairs. "Once." "Did they love it?" "They forgot." "How could anyone forget a dance like yours?" She didn't answer. He leaned back on his hands. "I want to show the world your story. I want to create a show around it. Surround you." Her eyes widened slightly. "You shouldn't." "Why not?" "It's dangerous." "For who?" "For you." Ethan laughed softly. "Too late." Her lips twitched into a smile, the first he'd ever seen from her. It was small, but it warmed something in him. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away gently. "Not yet," she whispered. The next day, Ethan asked around town again. "Ever heard of a dancer named Lila?" he asked a barista. "Nope." He asked the librarian. a few shopkeepers, even the mailman. No one had heard her name. Didn't make sense. How could someone like her, someone so extraordinary, leave no trace? That night, he told her, "No one knows you." She didn't seem surprised. He pressed on. "You live here, don't you? You have to. I've seen you, spoken to you. You're real." Lila looked down at her hands. "Some things are real only in certain places." "What does that mean?" She stood up slowly, her movements suddenly distant. "Would you still care for me," she asked quietly, "if I was only real here?" Ethan rose to his feet. "Yes. I don't care where you're real. I just want to know why you're afraid." Her voice trembled. "Because every time someone tried to love me, they disappeared." She vanished after that. Gone in a blink like always. Ethan stood alone on the stage, his heart racing. He didn't know what her words meant, not really. But he didn't care. He knew how he felt. Lila was a mystery, yes, but she was also his muse. His heart had found its rhythm again because of her. He returned the next night. And the next. Sometimes she came. Sometimes she didn't. But he kept dancing. Kept building the show. He called it the girl with no shadow. He drew every move from her, the way she turned, the way she stretched her arms like she was reaching through time. The dances told her story, even if she wouldn't, and every beat carried the ache of love growing in silence. One night, she stood beside him as he sketched the final act on a scrap of paper. "What is this?" she asked. "The ending." She studied the drawing, two dancers holding hands, their shadows intertwined. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "That's not how it ends." Ethan looked at her. "How does it end, then?" Lila stepped away, her eyes full of sorrow. "That's what I'm afraid to find out." And before he could stop her, she vanished into the darkness once more. Ethan had never tried to follow her. Until now. That night, her dancing had been full of something different, urgency. Like she was holding something back, or like she knew something he didn't. As soon as the music ended and she turned to walk away, he made a choice. Quietly, carefully, he picked up his bag and followed her into the shadows of the theater. She didn't seem to notice. Bare feet, soft steps, she moved down the aisle between broken seats, through a side door into the narrow hallway behind the stage. Ethan kept his distance. Her silhouette flickered like a dream in the dark. But just as she reached the end of the hallway, mid-step, she vanished. No door opened. No sound. She simply wasn't there. Ethan stopped, frozen. His breath caught in his throat. He stood in that hallway for a long time, staring at the empty space where she should have been. Later that night, unable to sleep, he flipped through his notebook and tried to make sense of it. He scribbled a question on a blank page. Where does she go? He looked at the clock. It was 12:07 a.m. His heart beat faster. He grabbed his phone and pulled up the last few nights of video recordings. Nothing unusual. He checked the timestamps on each visit. Her appearances were strange, always between 11 p.m. and midnight. He tested the idea the next night. He arrived at the theater early. 10:30 p.m. the stage was empty. 10:45 still nothing. But at exactly 11:02 p.m. she appeared. One moment there was only silence. The next, she was there, dancing beneath the moonlight streaming through the broken roof panels. She hadn't walked in. She hadn't emerged from the wings. She had simply appeared, like a memory replaying itself. When she stopped dancing, he spoke quietly from the edge of the stage. "Why do you always come at the same time?" She looked down at her hands. "Because that's when I'm allowed." "By who?" "Not who," she said. "What?" Finn took a slow breath. "You disappear after midnight." "I don't disappear," she said softly. "I return." "Return where?" She looked at him with something close to sadness. Somewhere you can't follow. Finn moved closer. You said before that you were afraid. Afraid of being loved. Of people disappearing. Layla turned away. Because I know what I am. He wanted to touch her shoulder, to hold her, to understand. But something inside warned him to keep his distance. I need to know the truth, he said. I need to understand who you are. Lila turned back to him slowly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Never try to record me. Never try to take me out of this place. And never follow me again. Why? Because that's the only rule I never break. That night he couldn't sleep. His feelings for Lila were no longer just fascination. He was falling for her, and fast. But his confusion was turning into desperation. He couldn't love a ghost. He couldn't hold on to a memory. He needed to know. Was she real? Was she human? Or was she something else? The next evening, he placed his phone near the curtain rail where she wouldn't see it. He adjusted the angle. Hit record. Felt wrong. But love, he told himself, demands truth. At 11:03 p.m. she appeared again. She danced more slowly than usual. Her eyes kept drifting toward the wings like she felt something was off. Finn sat perfectly still. But halfway through the routine, the theater lights flickered. Lila stopped dancing. She turned her head sharply, straight at the camera. And then at him. Finn's breath caught. Her eyes burned with something he hadn't seen before. Not anger, but fear. Deep, ancient fear. What did you do? She asked. He stood up slowly. I just needed to know. She moved toward the curtain rail. Finn rushed forward. Lila, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. But it was too late. She reached behind the curtain, found the phone, and held it in both hands. The screen went black. The lights above exploded with a loud pop, sending sparks across the stage. Darkness filled the space, thick and sudden. When the emergency lights blinked on a few seconds later, she was gone. The phone had melted in her hands. Smoke curled from the edges of the screen, which was now cracked and dark. Finn's hand shook as he picked it up. The phone was ruined. He left the theater in silence. The next night she didn't come. Nor the night after that. Ethan waited until 12:30 a.m., pacing the stage, calling her name into the shadows. Nothing. His chest felt hollow. He didn't care about the show anymore. He didn't care about the mystery. He just wanted her back. The third night, she appeared again. She stood in the middle of the stage, already dancing, not soft and graceful like before, but frantic. Her movements were sharp, fast, almost violent, like she was trying to shake something off. Finn called to her. Lila, please. I'm sorry. She didn't stop dancing. He stepped onto the stage, slowly approaching her. When he was close enough, he reached out. Please, just talk to me. She froze. Her body turned toward him, but her eyes looked past him, at the rows of empty seats, the place where memories lived. Her voice was a whisper. You broke the rule. I had to. I didn't know what else to do. Lila closed her eyes. When people try to take something that doesn't belong to their world, there's always a cost. I'm willing to pay it. You already have. He felt it before he saw it. His shadow wasn't moving. He turned his head quickly. The theater lights shifted slightly, casting long shapes along the floor. His own shadow stayed still. Frozen. Just like hers. He took a step back. His heart pounded. What's happening? Lila's voice was filled with sorrow. You look too closely. Am I dying? No, she whispered. You're becoming. Becoming what? She stepped closer, tears in her eyes. Like me. The air around them grew cold. The stage lights dimmed, flickering. She reached out and placed her hand over his heart. I didn't want this. He swallowed hard. What are you? I was a dancer. Once, a long time ago. I danced on this stage when it was new. I loved someone who betrayed me. He tried to turn my dance into something it wasn't. Tried to own me. So the theater kept me. Keeps you how? She gave a sad smile. It lets me return. But only here. Only now. And now me too? Her hand dropped from his chest. You broke the rule. Now you belong to the story. His knees weakened. He stumbled back. But I love you. She looked at him, tears falling silently. And I love you, she said. That's why I have to let you go. Then, for the first time ever, she turned and danced away from him. And this time, when she vanished into the shadows, he didn't follow. Ethan couldn't let it go. Even after everything, the broken phone, her warnings, the vanishing, he still needed answers. He needed the truth, even if it hurt, even if it changed everything. So he bought a small hidden camera, one with no light, no sound, no flash. He placed it high in the corner of the theater days before, behind a broken spotlight. Out of sight. He hadn't told her. That night, when she returned at exactly 11:03 p.m., he said nothing about it. He just watched. She danced beautifully, maybe even more than ever before. The music was soft, the lights dim, the air charged with emotion. Her dress moved like water around her legs. She was a vision. But Ethan couldn't enjoy it fully. His heart was heavy with guilt. When she vanished, he stayed seated. Waited until midnight passed. Then he climbed up to the camera and took it down. Back at his apartment, he transferred the footage to his laptop. He sat at his desk, staring at the screen. His hand hovered over the play button. Then he pressed it. Lila appeared, the same way she always did. Suddenly. No entrance. No shadow creeping in behind her. She just existed. She began to dance. Ethan watched closely, rewinding and slowing down the footage again and again. And then he saw it. His chest went cold. Her body moved, graceful, fluid, alive. But her shadow didn't. It stood still, frozen in place. He leaned closer, heart pounding. He slowed the footage even more. Frame by frame, she twirled, spun, stretched her arms, and the shadow didn't change. Not even a flicker. It was locked in time. A tear rolled down Ethan's cheek. What was she? The next night, she returned. She danced for barely a minute before stopping. Her body stilled. Her eyes lifted and found his. You recorded me, she said. Her voice was low, controlled, but shaking underneath. Ethan stood. Lila, you promised. I didn't promise. You told me not to, and I didn't say anything. I didn't agree. She stepped closer. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. You betrayed me. I needed the truth, he said. You said I was becoming like you, that I broke a rule. But I didn't understand. I was scared. You were scared. Her voice cracked, rising. I was trapped here. For 7 years. Alone. Repeating the same steps night after night. I begged you not to. And you still did. I'm sorry, he said. But now I know. I know what's wrong. I saw your shadow. It doesn't move. She stopped. For a moment, all the fury vanished. She looked small. Broken. My shadow doesn't move, she whispered, as if repeating it to herself. He stepped closer. Why, Lila? What happened to you? She sat slowly on the edge of the stage. Her fingers trembled in her lap. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. I died here. Ethan's breath caught. He didn't move. He didn't speak. It was 7 years ago, she said. Opening night. Place was full. Lights, flowers, music, all for me. It was supposed to be my big break. I'd spent months rehearsing. She looked out at the empty seats as if seeing them full again. But the final routine, the one I choreographed myself, no one ever saw it. They never heard the last note. Ethan knelt beside her. What happened? I fell, she said. One wrong step. I hit the ground so hard and no one caught me. Curtain came down. The audience screamed. But the show was never finished. And you? I died backstage. In my dressing room. Alone. My heart stopped before they got there. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. They forgot me, she said. The theater closed after that. They said it was bad luck. But no one remembered my name. Not the papers. Not the town. Nothing. So you're stuck? She nodded. I came back. Or part of me did. My shadow stayed. That final routine, I've been trying to complete it every night. I thought if I could just finish it perfectly, maybe I'd be free. Ethan looked at her hands, pale, ghost-like now under the light. Her fingers curled as if still holding music in the air. And the rule, he asked. Why can't you be filmed? Because if someone captures me, she said slowly, they anchor me here even deeper. Like pressing pause on a soul. It's not just about seeing the truth, it's about stopping the dance. And if I'm stopped, I disappear. He realized what he'd done. Not just disobeyed her, but risked breaking her completely. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't know. She looked at him, really looked. Her eyes weren't angry now. Just tired. I know you didn't. He sat beside her. Their shoulders nearly touched. What happens if you finish the dance? He asked. I don't know. I might move on. Or fade away. Or be erased. Finn swallowed hard. Then don't finish it. I have to. Why? She turned to him, eyes shining. Because someone has to remember I existed. They sat there in silence. Then Ethan stood. Then I'll help you. She looked up. How? You said no one applauded. That no one ever saw you. But I did. I still do. So this time you won't dance alone. We'll finish it together. And if it means you disappear, I'll remember you. I promise. Layla's lips trembled. For the first time, she reached for his hand. And this time, she didn't pull away. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her hand in his, how cold it was, how fragile. Like holding the edge of a memory. But she had held on. For the first time. That night changed everything. He knew she was a ghost. A spirit. A soul trapped in a theater no one visited anymore. And yet he loved her. Not because she was mysterious or beautiful or tragic, but because she was real in every way that mattered. But love didn't change the truth. She was fading. Each night she looked dimmer. More distant. Her skin paler. Her voice softer. Sometimes she forgot her steps mid-dance. The first time it happened, she shook her head, dazed. I've never done that before, she said. I always remember. Ethan held her hands tightly. You're getting tired. She didn't deny it. They both knew time was running out. He sat in the old theater during the day, staring at the dust dancing in the beams of sunlight. Her notebook, the one she had used all those years ago, still sat on the piano. He flipped through it carefully. Each page held scribbled moves, scratched music bars, little notes to herself in the margins. But the last page was blank. That night, when she appeared again, he stood waiting on the stage. Dance with me, he said. She blinked. You don't know the steps. Then we'll make new ones. Lila looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded. And for the first time, she didn't dance alone. They began slowly, not with music but with movement. Ethan let her lead at first, then gently shifted the rhythm, guiding her into something new. He wasn't a perfect dancer, but he was passionate. He moved with his heart, not his feet. They called it the rewrite. It was a duet about pain and love, about being broken and still choosing to reach out, about falling but finding someone there to catch you. It told her story, yes, the final dance that had never been applauded, but now it told his too. A man lost in heartbreak, who found a ghost that made him feel alive again. They practiced it every night. Lila changed. Her movements were less like echoes now and more like intention. She began smiling, not always, but sometimes. And sometimes when they touched, her hands didn't feel quite so cold. But she was still fading. Clock was chasing them. One night, as they rehearsed the final move, a slow, rising lift where she spun in his arms, she nearly fell. He caught her before she hit the floor. "I'm okay," she whispered, breathless. But she wasn't. That night, after she vanished, he stayed sitting on the stage for hours, staring at the spot where she'd stood. He couldn't lose her. Not now. But he couldn't keep her either. The next morning, Ethan called the local newspaper. He pitched a one-night-only performance. Just one show for anyone who remembered the theater or the dancer who had died there. The woman on the phone was confused at first. "There hasn't been a show there in years." "There will be now," Ethan said. He made flyers, posted them on coffee shop walls, old message boards, telephone poles. Most people ignored them, but a few asked questions. A few remembered something, a dancer, a fall, a tragedy no one had talked about in years. The show was scheduled for Saturday. One performance only. It's midnight. Lila didn't want to do it. "They'll see me," she said. "What if I disappear halfway through? What if they don't understand?" Ethan cupped her face. "Then we'll finish the dance while we can. If you vanish, let it be after your story is finally heard." That night, they rehearsed the duet again. And again. And again. Each time she looked weaker. Each time he held her tighter. On the night before the performance, they sat together in the center of the stage, hands linked, eyes on the empty seats. "Do you think it'll work?" she asked. Ethan leaned his head on her shoulder. "I don't know, but I think it's the closest we've come to something real." She laughed softly. "You're the only real thing I've known in years. I don't want to lose you." "You already did," she whispered. "The moment you fell in love with someone who can't stay." He turned to her. "Then let's make the ending beautiful." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "And this time," she said, "you'll be the one to lead." The theater was alive again. Lights warmed the stage. Dust had been swept away. The velvet seats, though old, welcomed their guests. Ethan had cleaned every inch himself, wiping mirrors, adjusting curtains, replacing bulbs. He borrowed speakers from a friend, printed a simple program. The final performance, a tribute to a dancer lost but not forgotten. He told people it was a dedication, a passion project, a mysterious one-night show, a whispered legend finally brought to light. Some came out of curiosity. Some remembered hearing about the accident years ago, the girl who fell during a performance. Most didn't know what to expect. Ethan wasn't sure what to expect either. But he was ready. It was 10 minutes to midnight. He stood alone backstage, palms sweating, breath shallow. The music was ready. The lights dimmed. The stage was empty. And then, at exactly 11:59 p.m., she appeared. Lila. She stepped through the side curtain like fog rolling into a dream. Her dress shimmered faintly like starlight sewn into silk. Her eyes locked with his. She smiled, tired, radiant, unafraid. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I'm ready." He offered her his hand. She took it. They stepped onto the stage together. The audience, maybe 40 people, went still. No clapping. Just breathless watching. As if something sacred was unfolding in front of them. The music began, slow, aching piano chords. Then the violin rose behind it, soft and soaring. Ethan moved first. She followed. It wasn't just dancing. It was storytelling. A story of pain, of longing, of something beautiful lost and finally found again. They danced like they were trying to rewrite fate. Their movements were slow but sharp, fluid but controlled. Every step mattered. Every spin held meaning. The audience leaned forward in their seats. Some blinked back tears, unsure why they were crying. They didn't know her name. They didn't know what had happened years ago. But they felt it. Lila was breathtaking. More real than ever. But something was changing. As the dance neared its end, Ethan noticed her skin shimmered, like light passing through water. Her fingers left faint trails of glow in the air. Her feet didn't quite touch the ground anymore. And then, in the final moment, the last lift, he spun her gently in his arms. Their eyes met. The music reached its last note. The theater held its breath. And then it happened. Lila's shadow moved. Twirled with her, following the spin exactly. For the first time in 7 years, it moved in perfect sync. Her eyes filled with tears. She smiled. And vanished. Right there, mid-spin, she faded. Not like a light switched off, but like smoke drifting into the stars. One moment in his arms. The next gone. Ethan stood alone at center stage. There was no applause at first. Just silence. Deep, stunned silence. And then someone stood. A man in the third row. Wiping tears from his face. He clapped. Then another. And another. Soon the room thundered with applause. But Ethan didn't move. His eyes were locked on the space where she'd been. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just smiled, the kind of smile that carries grief and joy at the same time. He knew she was free. Backstage later, he found something. On the old mirror in her dressing room, a message was written in dust, as if traced by delicate fingers. "Thank you for seeing me." He pressed his hand to it. And then, finally, he wept. The theater stayed open. Not because of ticket sales. Not because of fame or attention. But because Ethan couldn't close the door on her. He renamed it quietly, The Forgotten Dancer. A simple plaque above the entrance. No date. No last name. Just that title, her title. Every week, he held small performances. He taught young dancers who couldn't afford fancy studios. He brought in struggling artists, actors, singers. People like he once was, broken, searching, starting over. He told Lila's story in pieces. Never all at once. Never to the press. But sometimes, when the lights were low and the moonlight poured through the dusty windows, he'd share a memory. A movement. A feeling. Most didn't believe him. Some did. But none forgot how he spoke of her, like someone remembering a dream they never wanted to wake from. Ethan smiled more now. But he smiled differently. It was softer. Sadder. Wiser. He loved her still. And he always would. Sometimes at midnight, he would return alone to the stage. He'd press play on the duet's music and dance her part slowly, remembering every step they created together. The final spin. The smile. The moment her shadow had finally moved. It was the most beautiful lie he ever told himself, that she might still be watching. But he knew it wasn't a lie. 'Cause something always lingered. A whisper in the curtains. A shimmer in the light. A chill down his spine that felt like a hand on his shoulder. Years passed. One spring night, the town was quiet and the theater stood still. Ethan walked in without turning on the lights. He didn't need them. He knew every creak of the floorboards, every breath of the walls. He stood center stage. closed his eyes. "I miss you," he whispered. A warm breeze drifted through the room, but the doors were closed. And then he heard it. Faint. Clear. "You helped me finish my dance." Her voice. Not in his head. Not imagined. Real. He opened his eyes, startled. No one was there. But the shadow beside him wasn't his alone. It moved just a step behind. Small. Delicate. Familiar. Followed him as he walked slowly toward the exit. And for the first time after all the years of loneliness, he didn't leave alone. He never saw her again. Not the way he had before. But her presence stayed. In the rhythm of the floor. In the quiet hush between performances. In every shadow that remembered how to move. And sometimes when the world was silent enough, he could almost feel her beside him, dancing still. Not haunting. Not trapped. Just remembered. Just loved.